Okay, I guess. Officially. All right, we'll call the meeting to order. Uh, February 11th meeting of the Westport Island Planning Board is now in session. We have a quorum present in person, and we have April online. April, hope you're feeling better.
Thank you. Getting there.
Yeah, okay. All right. And I see we have two members of the public. Good to see you all again. And you met, and
Our community member, our biggest fan.
I know, the select board or Donna just said, you guys gave up on us and are coming here now. What happened? And now you're doing both.
well, feel free to move up closer as we get started. Yeah.
Dinner, we have a dinner reservation, so I know, I'm sorry, did not invite you.
You didn't bring any to share.
No, I did not. Next time, baker.
Okay, first item on the agenda are the minutes. Mary Ellen has again shared her masterful work with us. We have minutes from the meeting of February 11th and the special meeting of March 4th before us. Does everybody have those?
I got them before.
Does anybody need more time to take a look at it?
One correction, I think I got this correction, on February 11th, in David Bertrand's application, the title of it should be revision to previously approved subdivision plan, not site plan. So I kind of just, whatever, put the wrong word in there.
And I may have misstated it.
Well, all good. If we can fix that, that would be fine. I don't know if there's other corrections.
Perfection can.
So, yeah,
Yeah, subdivision.
yep.
All right,
That's what your email said.
any other changes, additions or deletions to the minutes of, which one were you talking about?
11th.
February 11th.
I think they're fantastic. I will we.
All right, with that in ringing endorsement,
Seconded.
so we have a second, all in favor of approving the February 11th meeting minutes. All in favor, unanimous.
Yes.
All right. With respect to the special meeting minutes of March 4th. Any changes, additions, deletions? Seeing none, do we have a motion to adopt the minutes
So
of March 4th?
Second.
All in favor?
Yeah.
Unanimous? Mary Ellen, thank you very, very much.
Work.
Doggone it.
Then we send out the history ones.
Okay.
So you see this came in today.
Oh, no, I didn't.
So let's, she's gonna be talking. I have copies here.
Oh, okay, good. Yes, and with respect to the agenda, thank you. April called and reminded me that we have a guest speaker going to be joining us. I've forgotten his name, Ross.
Ross Gatcombe.
Yes,
He's Colin Clark's colleague. Colin is out right now. Although Ross said that Colin is partially back at this point and might also join us.
okay. So, so I'd like to amend the agenda to include as 4A, hearing from them before we begin to talk about the proposed ordinances, assuming we get to that point before they arrive. Don't get to that point before they arrive. And we've asked them to join us about 6:45. Okay. Any other additions, changes to the proposed to the agenda? Seeing none. Okay. Public comment. We have two members of the public. It's nice to see you all again. I assume you're here for the item 3 that we have, hearing from Megan. But you're not limited to that participation if you'd like to say something.
We might be tempted.
All right. Well, feel free to pipe up anytime at this point. All right, we'll close the official public comment at this point and move to item 3 on the agenda, And I see we've got Megan online. Are you still there?
Yeah, hi there.
Hi, Megan, how are you?
Good. And I have my husband Scott here as well.
Welcome,
Hello.
Scott.
Nice to meet you.
Yes,
And
yes.
We've
a
got
couple of
we've
dogs.
got our furry friends here with us too, so apologies for any barking.
Yeah.
Well, that's fine too. They're welcome to participate as appropriate. So yes. So I know that there's been a little bit of back and forth. Sorry we couldn't really engage on any substantive discussions,
Yeah.
but I hope you appreciate we're working as a board and really taking as seriously as we can the obligation to be as transparent as possible. So we try to keep all these kinds of conversations uh, uh, in a public forum so that anybody who's interested may have an opportunity to participate or at least find out what's going on.
Yep.
So with that introduction, and I think everybody's familiar with where you all are and the situation generally that you all have. Talk to us. What's on your minds, and keeping in mind that anything we say and anything you say will not be used against you at any future time.
We appreciate that.
And
read your rights.
nothing you say we take as any firm commitments, and nothing that we say will likewise have any binding effect on what we're doing or talking about. And just for everybody's benefit, Gary has joined us. Good to see you, Gary.
Hello.
And Gary, for your benefit, we've got Megan and her husband, and I apologize, I didn't write it down.
Scott.
But
Yeah.
from 36 Hodgkin Road.
Oh, hi Megan. Hi Scott.
Hello.
Hi.
All right. Okay, the floor is yours, Megan and Scott.
Yeah, so I know this is just very early stages. We don't really know the avenue to go through, so I really appreciate you having us here and kind of having this informal discussion. But essentially, what we would like to do is use one of our outbuildings. It was the old Boat Works, if you're familiar with that, as a very small kind of community workshop space. And essentially what we were thinking, this is like 10, 20 people max. This is not a large venue. We're not having like a wedding barn or anything like that. But essentially we want to be able to offer little educational workshops, tastings, offer potentially like aquaculture educational organizations, have them come in as well. So, we do need to make some improvements internally. So that's kind of where we want to start with, like, is this even a viable thing being within a CFMA zone before we kind of spend the money to build out the space a little bit better and make those improvements overall.
Okay. Any questions from the board?
I have not visited the property, so I know other people have. So are we talking about one building, Megan, or two buildings? Can you talk about the property a little bit?
Yeah, so we have a cottage on the property, and then there is also essentially it is kind of a barn. It's a larger boathouse structure. They used to make boats within it. So it's a good size building that's on the property. I don't know if you're familiar with, they had kind of like an L-shaped dock that we will be putting out in the spring. But you may have seen that as well. But there's a very long drive. There's a lot of flat kind of land for parking as well, at the cottage, a raised level, and then down below this boathouse building as well. So I do think we would have some ample space for parking, and it's tucked away from the main road. I don't think it would be causing a lot of noise. It would be 1-2 events per week max. Either during the day, early evening. This isn't going to be like a party venue at all.
Well, yeah, yeah.
Do either of you participate in commercial, fishing or aquaculture activity?
No, we do not.
Okay.
Is there any intention to continue the marina facility there on the property?
Yes, so that the floats will be going out in the spring. We work with Ted Christie on that. They'll be out there and have a couple of boats on the floats.
So that's a continuation, at least the current, one of the current commercial uses of the property.
I'm sorry, what was the question?
Saying that you're continuing one of the current commercial uses of the property.
Correct. Yep.
Any other?
I take it that the barn that you're talking about is close to the water. It's within the 75-foot range.
It is within the shoreline zone. We would not be making any changes to the actual structure itself. It would be improvements on the interior, handrails, things like that, getting it up to code to having people in there. But nothing that would affect the actual shoreline area or the outside structure itself.
Yeah, the footprint would not change.
Is there any, utilities, water, gas, anything existing now, or would you expand on that?
There's not active water, so there's water that runs through the dock, but there's not like a sink or I know they tried to add a toilet facility years ago. So there's no running water within the building, but there is electricity.
There's electricity.
And there's a furnace that we don't plan to use, and I don't know how that is.
Yeah, there was an old kerosene furnace in there and a tank. Yeah, we have electric right now and water runs again down to the dock.
So the only improvements that you're contemplating at this point are improvements to the barn?
Yeah, on the inside.
Mm-hmm.
No improvements to the boathouse or the cottage?
So I'm calling it barn / boathouse just to give people an idea, but yeah, it is the boathouse.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Building. Yeah.
Okay. So no improvements to the cottage?
We not structurally. We've done some interior work and roofing repairs, but no actual changes to the structure of the cottage.
What's the status of the cottage now? Is somebody living there or?
We were there through the fall and through the new year, and we'll open it back up in April, but it's totally livable. It was more just kind of sprucing things up. I believe no one had lived there for about 2 years, so just some general maintenance and sprucing.
Yeah, we plan to be there for this entire spring and summer.
Yeah.
And then hopefully as far into the fall as we can go for.
Okay. And I assume the cottage is within the CFMA zone as well?
That I'm not clear on. I couldn't clearly find it because I do know that the lot is split into, or the property is split into 2 lots, I believe, and the boathouse is on its own lot.
Oh, I see.
The boathouse is zoned CFMA, and I believe that the cottage is zoned residential, but I think we might need some clarification on that.
Yeah, I couldn't clearly find that in any documents.
Yeah. Well, and Gary, of course, is here and can speak to it as well too. But it's my understanding that the rub here is that the improvements that you're thinking about making to the boathouse.
Mhm.
And the use of the boathouse would not be consistent with the CFMA district. And you know, depending upon how you all decide to proceed, certainly one of the first questions is going to be, how does that affect your application? And is there any discretion? Are there any exceptions? Is there any way to avoid the limitations that are there in the CFMA? And as I think you can probably appreciate, we can't tell you now. We can't give you any legal advice, and we certainly can't make a decision before we have an application. So,
Okay.
I guess, and I don't want to. I'm not speaking for the board. Of course, we're just kind of brainstorming here a little bit. But if you haven't already, one thing you might want to do is talk to an attorney, land use attorney, have them look at the ordinances, talk to you all about what you're thinking about doing, and then have that person, he or she, give you their best advice on how to proceed.
Okay.
If you don't decide to pursue that route and go on your own, we're going to hold you to the same standard. I mean, it's not going to change whether you have an attorney or not. And we'll apply the ordinances as best we can. But we can't do anything until you file an application.
Okay.
We can't take any formal action until you file an application in whatever form, shape that might be. So anyway, those are just my thoughts off the top. Go ahead, Jeff.
My thought was that maybe could we, since we have the benefit of having the code enforcement office here as well, just talk a little about what some of the considerations are and our understanding of the ordinances. So it might help them to get started.
Well, as long as everybody understands that whatever we might say about that isn't binding.
We haven't got any application in front of us,
Yeah.
but we're just discussing a little bit what we understand of the rules.
Okay, well, we just need to be cautious because we're not going to be bound by anyone's interpretation that they might articulate today. And we don't want them to feel that they can rely upon any understanding that we might talk about here, because when the application comes up.
Just at my very high level of reviewing the CFMA ordinances or, the document itself, at least, it said that it was up to the municipality's discretion if they wanted to grant an exclusion. I don't know if that would be, for the whole thing, if it would be for a particular ordinance that would be in place, but it did say that there were, municipality allowances possibly that could be made.
Okay, I'm not familiar with that, so that would be news to me. Again, I can't speak for anybody else, but if that's the case, then you would make your application. But obviously, you'll do your research either individually or through an attorney to help you do that. But I'll just give you my quick reaction. That'd be the first I've heard of that.
Okay.
And since the proposals for commercial use, the site plan ordinance would also apply in this area. Is that correct? Yeah.
Yes.
So additionally to the site plan, into the CFMA zoning, you would want to look at also the site plan ordinance, which is to the town and how we approve of commercial activity and businesses on Westport Island.
Just on that, if a commercial activity, a property that had a commercial activity sells, a new owner comes in, they're also expected to go through site plan review to talk about what they plan to do going forward.
Okay.
Gary?
I just want to, sorry, are we going to hear from Gary now? That's what I was going to say.
Yeah, I was just going to invite Gary, and don't feel obligated to it's because I know you've already had conversations with them, but, feel free to participate if you.
Sure. Yeah, no, it sounds like, Megan and Scott, it sounds like your proposal would be an application for a change of use. And where the boathouse is, within the 75-foot buffer zone of the high water line, and it's also in a CFMA district. Our ordinances require that the use, the principal use of that structure be commercial fisheries, maritime activities related. So I think your challenge is to convince this board that your proposal for having gatherings or events is ancillary or secondary to a principal use, which is maritime related.
Okay.
I'm not sure that I've heard that argument articulated yet, but I think that will be your challenge moving forward.
Gary, is the structure there considered to be conforming or non-conforming? In terms of the shoreline zoning
It's
ordinance?
conforming in regard to the CFMA district.
Mhm.
But if the use changes to a commercial fishery or maritime use, then no, it's not.
Were you able to hear that, Megan?
Yes.
Okay, good.
So I'm, I
Go
have a
ahead.
question too.
Yeah.
So I'm wondering, this is just considerations, have you thought about additional parking and septic system layout? As you may need to increase that.
So yeah, there is an outhouse that is very nice, but I know that they have applied for septic in the past for the boathouse, and that has not been approved, even when it was, the boat works and fully conforming, it sounds like, to the CFMA. So I think we would probably be looking at portable toilets or something if we did have that upward of 20-30 people.
I have a question. I think this one might be for Gary. So, and I'm not quite sure how to phrase this, and I apologize if I ramble, but the building is on a parcel zone CFMA. The use they're proposing, they might be able to pretzel it into CFMA, but probably isn't maritime related, basically. I guess I don't understand why they can't just apply as a regular business. It's not prohibited, is it, in the shoreland zone? I know some things are, but like it doesn't sound like this would be a prohibited commercial enterprise. What stops them from just applying as a regular business?
It wouldn't necessarily be prohibited in the shoreland zone, but the issue for them is this location of the structure in the 75-foot buffer zone. That's where the regulations that prohibit non-maritime activity, commercial fishing uses can take place.
And when you say the buffer, is that the 75-foot buffer?
It is.
Okay. So there aren't any other businesses on the island that do non-maritime related things within the 75-foot buffer? You can't do it unless you're maritime related?
No,
Okay.
That's in our land use.
not unless it's grandfathered in, but I don't think there's anything that's grandfathered in on the island within the buffer zone.
With a building in the buffer zone.
With the building.
With a building in the buffer zone.
Okay. So the actual business would have had to have been grandfathered in, is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
the business that you're proposing.
Yeah, but I think with a change of property, transfer of
Change of
property,
use.
then they need to go through a site plan review for businesses.
Yeah. Okay. And I guess what if we, had presented to have the CFMA designation removed from that parcel?
Yeah, what would happen with that?
Well,
Excellent question.
It's funny you should ask that because we've had this past year we've had quite a few conversations about CFMA districts, district or zone, district. Thank you. We've been having a lot of back and forth about that, but at any rate, so you're catching us at a very educated point in our evolution with respect to CFMAs and how to manage those. And so I think that's something that you all might want to explore. I don't, again, can't give you any ideas to where that might end, but you might, if that's something that you want to consider doing, that's certainly was an option. I don't know where it would land, but keep in mind the CFMA district is created, the birth of it is through a warrant at a town meeting. So again, not giving you anything that you can really rely upon, but if it's something that you're going to propose, it might very well have to take the form of a warrant issue that would be placed on the agenda for the town meeting by the select board.
Okay.
Can I ask? Oh, sorry.
No,
Sorry, there's a lag, so it's hard not to interrupt. I wanted to ask Gary a question. Wouldn't this be a change of use of a non-conforming structure?
It is not a non-conforming structure at present because it's a boathouse that was approved to be included in the commercial fisheries maritime activities district. The use has subsequently been stopped, but that doesn't, just because the use is stopped doesn't mean that it's non-conforming. It can be resumed at any time by the current owner. However, what these people are proposing is a change of use, and that the change of use has to be viewed under what is allowed in that particular district. And because the structure is within the buffer zone, the only uses allowed have to be maritime related or commercial fisheries related as a principal use. Doesn't mean that secondary uses can't be included, but the principal use has to be in that category of CFMA.
Okay, thank you.
So you're getting the benefit of people noodling on this and kind of exploring it. And keep in mind, I mean, we're obviously residents who care about other residents and the island activities. And even though what you're proposing sounds like a neat idea, we're bound to apply and enforce the ordinances, and that's what you're getting.
Sure.
Some feedback on. And again, to my knowledge, there isn't a omnibus discretionary. We can kind of look the other way and make an exception here for there with respect to this type of event.
Okay.
So any other questions or?
I just had one more question. If it was no longer a CFMA district, would that setback apply, that 75-foot setback for a business running in that area, I guess?
Well, you're still in the shoreland zone, so now you have a separate set of ordinances that would apply, and my recommendation would be for you all to read those and see what it says.
Okay.
Yeah. And I'm sorry, I meant, members of the public, did you all have any questions?
Sure, we're just neighbors and we're just curious what's going on, that's
Okay,
listening.
okay, yeah,
Great.
yeah, you probably, know each other.
Is that Grover?
All right, very good. Don't need to make introductions.
Oh, is it the roses?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
hi.
Oh, nice. Hello.
Sorry, you can't see.
We'll see you soon.
Yeah.
Good, good.
One additional question.
Of course.
So as far as primary use goes, like we are like going to be like paying for and getting the docks installed and investing back into the structure of them so that they're getting up to snuff so that we're able to use them. And we're inviting the like we're essentially opening the dock back up for the public to, you know, have their boats there, and that's the commercial usage of the dock right now. Like I guess I'm saying that as like it essentially could be the primary usage of the property, like, and then having the secondary usage be something that happens to be a day or two a week, when 5 days a week we're using it as a dock. Like, does that it sounds like it could be a primary usage for the CFMA still, and then a secondary usage as being something else here as a workshop space.
Yeah, if you have an application, present it. I think you would get a variety of off the cuff responses right now that probably might not be helpful, but at any rate,
Can I say something?
I think you're at a point where you probably want to make an application and or talk to an attorney about it.
Can I pop in real quick here? Sorry again.
Of course.
Maybe it would make sense for them to do a site plan review application going over all the many things they want to do with the property, because really that is supposed to happen before any permits are issued. Site plan review is really clear about that. And we haven't talked to you, and it's not your fault, guys, because the town is not great about educating about this. But we haven't had a site plan review for your dock business, which I think we probably should. So if you wanted to come up with sort of more of like a global picture of like all of your commercial intentions for the property, and then the planning board would do site plan review, and then the next step I think would be going for permits. So that might be the appropriate application, but I am not an attorney and I'm just guessing.
Yeah, I mean, I guess while we're here, we did not realize that something additional had to be done for the docks. We just have like the submerged land lease that, you know, we registered with the state, had that transferred to us, but is there something at the town level that we have to do now?
Well, site plan review is for all businesses that happen on the island, anything that isn't like happening out of a home that we can't see from the exterior. So I think you're doing what has been done with the property before, but you're new owners. So my guess would be that probably site plan review would be appropriate. And again, I don't think it's your fault you didn't know, because we aren't really advertising that much, but we do have the ordinance and we've been trying to be better about it. Okay. And that might be a way where we could talk about the whole picture.
Yep.
Right. That's kind of the point of site plan review. Here's our vision. Make sure the planning board's like, oh, that's okay, that's not okay, before you go get the permits.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, this was kind of more of a fun thing for me to do while I'm there all summer. I don't know if we want to involve lawyers. We don't want to spend a bunch of money digging into this. It was more of just, you know, can I do something fun with this space? Hopefully get to know some of the neighbors, some of the local artisans as well. I know there's a lot of great artists in the area. So I think this was more of kind of a passion side project for me that I don't know how aggressive we'll take it on.
Yeah, I don't know. Do others have thoughts on site plan review application versus other types of applications as a first step?
And April, I think you're right on.
Yeah.
And I think it might be a way for us to kind of explore these questions with you. And if something doesn't work, you can always go back to the drawing board and submit another site plan review application.
Great. Okay.
Okay.
then yeah, that's where we'll start.
There's a whole ordinance, that has to do with site plan reviews, so.
Okay. Yeah, we
so-
haven't even looked at that. We don't know anything about it, so
So we'll start.
Yeah.
We have some work to do.
yeah.
Yeah, they're all online.
Okay.
So,
So you can find it on the town website under, I believe, what is it, town records and ordinances. You'll see the shoreland zoning ordinance there, which will explain the CFMA, right? And then underneath that, you'll see site plan review ordinance, which you can go to for any commercial activity on the island. That is what and it comes to this board to review.
Okay.
But the basis of the CFMA zoning is really, it allows extensive development on the waterfront to retain Maine's working waterfront. And that's really the spirit of it.
Mhm. Yeah, I mean, I would love to put it to good use, but unfortunately, if we're owning this property, we don't have a commercial fishing business, and but we could potentially invite others to use it in that capacity in the future.
Mhm.
Okay. Well, yeah, no, I think we really appreciate your time and answering all of our questions, and we will get started with the site plan review.
yeah, well, we really appreciate you reaching out to us. Sometimes folks either don't think of it or aware of it, or deliberately ignore it. So
Yeah.
we really appreciate you reaching out and asking these questions and exploring it. And, just as potential neighbors on the island, everybody's interested and curious about what's going on and neat things like what you're proposing, what impact they might have. But again, we've got rules that we have to follow in order to maintain the integrity of the land use planning ordinances and plans. So let's see what happens and what works out. But it sounds like you have some opportunities, and we look forward to hearing from you.
Great.
Fantastic. Thank you guys so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, April. Thanks to the board. Thanks, Gary. Thanks, residents.
All right.
All right. Very
Yeah,
good.
we'll see you this
See
spring.
you all. Safe
Bye.
travels. The mud's starting to flow.
We do have Ross on the Zoom at this point, but I'm sure he'd be willing to wait if we want to chat before.
Yeah, no, why don't you make introductions, April, and hold on. We have a number.
All the butters get to come to do, for each time they do the site plan review, if that one doesn't work,
Oh, yeah.
be notified to be there too.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you join us on our site, when we walk the site, and you get to ask the same questions. You get to, they present to all of us, not just the planning board, but the abutters as well, and you get to ask your questions and.
This is.
I like the
chart.
bigger butter piece.
And even if you weren't sitting here, they would mail you notice.
No, I don't think so.
Okay. Oh, goodies are welcome.
I think we've just been talking here.
I was like, I'm putting that in the middle.
All right. Any other public comments?
They do have a cute outhouse there, I like, they're old.
Well, you should have told them that.
No, I'm not gonna interfere with what's going on.
Yeah. Well, you'll have to make sure you tell them that.
I helped them on out there, I go over there quite a bit, and water is coming out of their house.
Oof.
Oh, wow.
The swear time, so I called them on up and they gave me the combination to get in, they turn off the pump. So one pipe shit completely apart in the bathroom. But being the old house, the floorboards weren't really tight together, they're the old wide thick ones, so there was no damage.
Well, that's a
Little room for things to breathe, yeah.
bad news, good news. So, well, good. Well, we look forward to hearing from you all too. But feel free anytime to
Yeah,
Okay, thank you.
participate.
we're going for oysters.
Yeah, okay.
All right.
Like it.
After, for Wednesday night, half bottle of wine and
Ooh,
solid oysters.
that's not bad.
I know, that's my dinner.
Sounds good.
Good vitamins.
Bye-bye.
boys.
All right, thank you. Yeah, be safe.
Thank you.
Thanks for
Watch out for the deer.
I know they're woken after that warm day. They were like,
Okay, April, the floor is yours.
Yeah, so I just want to introduce, excuse me, Ross Gatcombe from the DEP. Colin came to see us a couple of weeks ago, Colin Clark from the DEP, and sat down with me and Demi and Nick and Jeff. We had a long, far-ranging conversation, so that was really interesting. And then since then, I've been following up, but Colin's out on leave, so Ross has stepped in to help answer my questions, and I thought it might be helpful to have him here to talk through all of this with us. And I think you guys all know, I've mentioned before that I feel like our building code and shoreland zoning ordinance are mostly the same, but slightly different and conflicting in areas and very confusing, and that we really either need to get those to line up perfectly or just combine them into one nice big ordinance. And it's something I've been working on. I showed you that awful color-coded document, I think, at our last meeting, where I took our building code, our shoreland zone, the DEP guidelines, and smushed them all together just to see visually where the overlap and where the conflicts are. And I have now been actually working on a clean copy of a combined version of all three, which is actually coming along really well and so close to done, but I just couldn't pull it off with the flu this week. But I'll send a draft to you guys as soon as I can, and to the DEP as well. And I guess the big thing that I'm hoping Ross will speak to a little bit, while Colin was here, he looked at our shoreland zoning map and we were talking about the limited residential commercial zone. And he's like, wait, you have a zone that's in the shoreland and not in the shoreland? And I was like, yes, why? And he said, that's kind of problematic. And so since then, I've been grappling with that. And I think that might be a change that we need to address sooner rather than later. I don't think it'll be hard to do. It's mostly semantics and just like in the language in our ordinances, sort of separating the limited residential commercial and the shoreland from the interior area. They also have slightly different standards, I believe, in terms of tree removal and some other things. So we really kind of need, the non-shoreland areas kind of need their own column in the land use. We need to be a little bit more clear about like, these two things are separate. And that's what I've been grappling with and kind of talking to Ross about. And the other thing I mentioned and that has been on my mind is that after Colin left, I realized one thing he was trying to drive home to me is that shoreland districts should end at the shoreland zone at the 250-foot mark. Some of our CFMAs do, some of them don't. And that is also a problem. Like they should all end at the shoreland zone line. And the bigger problem is that our official map shows them going all the way to the interior line. And courts have held the maps to be the controlling thing. So we may have to revise that map to make that clear as well. So those are the two items in terms of district adjustments. No substantive changes to land use rules at all or to what people can do, but just to clean up our ordinances and make them sort of line up correctly. And then the other big thing I think we might talk about a little bit tonight is our resource protection zone consists of one optional item in the DEP guide. So they have 4 mandatory items, and then they have a list of optional things you can choose to have in your resource protection district. And it looks like what we have is just one of those optional items. So I think we might need to update that to include the mandatory things. Again, I don't think it will be a big change on the ground, but that seems to be the other big inconsistency that's come up in my journey here.
Okay, good. Well, thank you for that warm up. Ross, nice to meet you, and thank you very much for taking your time this evening to spend a with us. We really appreciate it, and what you and Colin are doing. You've got kind of a mixed bag. Three of us were available for the meeting with Colin, maybe four, and the rest of us weren't. And so you've got varying levels of understanding of the issues. The folks who weren't there did have an opportunity to catch up at our last two meetings, I think, or our last meeting. So we're just about at the same level of understanding, I think, across the board and around the table. But I think what might help, and April, defer to you and Jeff and the others who attended the first meeting. It might help us tonight if we had some very specific questions for Ross based upon the discussions you all had and then the discussions we've had since your meeting with Colin. At least that would help me wrap my head around the conversation tonight. So April or Jeff or others, Nick, are there is there a specific question? And let's just ask one question and work through it one at a time, if that makes sense to you all.
Well, I have a list of specific questions, but I kind of want to hear from Gary and others who haven't been as involved in this back and forth with the subcommittee, if what I just said about interior versus shoreland and differentiating those things makes sense, or do you have questions, or because I think it's kind of a big shift in how we talk about our zoning, and I just want to get feedback.
Could you frame it in a question for Gary then?
Yeah, Gary, what do you think about differentiating the interior part of the island as a separate zone, just so we can give it its own column, not changing anything about what's allowed there, but visually and in the language of the ordinance, differentiating it from the shoreland zone?
Well, you would highlighted the issue of having one district spread across both the shoreland and the interior zones. What was the discussion around the problem in having that? Because the shoreline zoning ordinance has standards for property where a structure is proposed within that 250-foot zone. Outside of that, the standards move over to the building code ordinance, soon to be maybe the land use ordinance. I'm not sure I'm following why that's an issue. Having the limited residential commercial transversing the two zones or the two districts.
I guess I would defer to Ross here, but I think because the rules are different in the interior, it's my understanding.
Just maybe one of the Ross, I'm Jeff. I was copied on the emails between you and April, a couple others, and the email that you sent on Wednesday last week was interesting because you were talking about the situation where you had a property or a parcel or an area that was in two different districts, and it used an example of having one in a shoreline zoning district with a floodplain zone also, as well as other municipal land use ordinances. One of the things that's confusing as I kind of read over the paragraph was what's a district and what's a zone, and what's the difference?
Would you like me to answer that, or?
Yeah.
Okay, sure. Well, first I want to tell you my name's Ross Gatcomb. I'm with Maine Shoreland Zoning with DEP, and I'm out of the Northern Maine region. I'm just kind of filling in for Colin, but he's kind of around now for questions. But so the difference is there is a shoreland zone and there's districts within the zone. And the districts are regulated differently due to circumstances. Like, for instance, you have a limited residential, which is normally the use of it is for residential or housing, whereas you have a resource protection district, which could include floodplains, sloped areas, wetland areas, or like an area that has wildlife, like inland wading bird and waterfowl habitat. So each of these are different, and there's different regulations within them, meaning setbacks and what activities you could actually do in each one of these. Like you have a general development district, which is, for business and commercial and industry. You wouldn't be able to do that activity in a limited residential area. So does that answer your question, or?
Well, partially it's the point that we'll have properties, many of our properties are both in the shoreline zone and outside.
Yep.
And today, most of them are in what we refer to as a limited commercial residential district. And we have rules for that district. And when we look at that property, if anything that's in the shoreline zone in that property is going to have to apply, utilize the more restrictive rules for shoreline zoning. But we've treated it still as limited commercial residential on both sides of the line. What happens, or how should we approach this? I think this is part of, as I understood April's question, we'll have a limited residential commercial district in shoreline zone, but the property is also on the outside of shoreline. So it's also, we think, limited residential commercial in a non-shoreline zone. Does that make sense?
Well, so what makes this kind of confusing is you're mixing within the shoreline zone, you're mixing two different districts together. You should have a separate limited residential and a separate limited commercial. And the outer area outside the shoreline zone, I would probably not use the terminology that is close to shoreline zoning, not to confuse people. Because if you're using limited residential in the inland area past the shoreline zone, that makes it confusing, where someone says, well, the limited residential in the shoreline zone tells me I could do this, but you're telling me I can't do that in outside the shoreline zone, but yet it still has the same title, as a district. Does that make sense? Or I wish I had a whiteboard I could kind of show you.
Back in 1992, I'm dating myself a little bit, but when mandatory shoreline zoning was imposed on municipalities, we thrashed this issue over and over and over. And given the nature of the geography of Westport Island, we don't lend ourselves to having either within the shoreline zone or outside, having a specific district that lends itself to calling it a commercial district, or a specific area that lends itself to being a growth district. The development is scattered, it's scattershot on the island, and the whole island is the same, it's homogeneous. So we took the approach that we were gonna create districts and zones that had specific rules and apply them to all of the areas on the island. You can probably have the thought that that's a wrong approach, but in our mind at the time, and in my mind still today, there's no way that we can take and isolate certain areas of the island and designate them different than another area. It's just not the way that growth occurs on the island.
Yeah, I just want to jump in here and say that's not what's being proposed right now. I think any changes to our really deep changes to our zoning and what people can do on their land is 2 to 5 years if we even want to touch that. What I'm proposing, and I think bare minimum, is just creating a very slightly different separate category for what you can do in the interior. I know it's different in at least a couple ways. Trees come to mind, but I think there's other things that are different. So it would, maybe I'm dumb, but it was never clear to me until I really dug into this that we really have two zones. We have a shoreland zone, which is really well defined and talked about. And then sort of by default, without really explicitly talking about it, we have a non-shoreland zone. But we have this table of land uses with our 4 districts laid out very nicely. And that table is identical in the shoreland zoning ordinance and in the building code ordinance, which is very confusing, right? Because there ought to be those either shouldn't be in the building code ordinance at all, those districts, or there should at least be a column for what you can do in the interior, which is slightly different. And that would have helped me get my head around how we actually zone here. And I think would be more clear for residents and other people trying to use the ordinance. And according to Colin is the more straightforward, proper way to do it. So that's what I'm proposing. I'm not proposing at this point splitting anything out or following the DEP suggestions about limited commercial versus limited residential or anything like that. Just simply splitting out our interior and having it have its own column in the table and just calling it, we don't have to call it non-shoreland zone. That's what I'm calling it, but something that's different.
April, are you saying as our shoreland zone ordinance exists right now, there's a table that says land uses in the shoreland zone? And you're saying that same table that is labeled land uses in the shoreland zone exists in the building code ordinance? And
Yes.
you're suggesting that the building code, why wouldn't then the building code ordinance just have land uses in the commercial, the LR, the residential commercial, limited residential commercial district that everything else is?
It kind of, yeah, basically, yes, Demi, like it should have one column if we were going to be
Right.
consistent, but it couldn't be exactly the same as the LRC column in the shoreland zone because the interior has slightly different rules. Not a lot different, but at least in a couple of areas, like trees, for example, I keep repeating that, but it should be a little bit different.
So then the table that should exist in the building code ordinance should be land uses in the limited commercial residential district, right? And then the table and land uses in the shoreland zone should not only include RP, LD, LRC, CFMA, but also 75 and 250 foot. Because there's also different uses within the 75-foot hat line and the 250-foot hat line.
I don't know if I would go that far just because most of the ones I've looked at from other towns don't break out the 75 versus 100. They're not districts, they're setbacks, so they're a little bit different.
Okay.
The one in the building code ordinance, rather than having a column that's limited residential commercial, we need to differentiate it from the LRC in the shoreland zone. So I think we should have a completely different name. And in fact, we should just call it the non-shoreland zone. We don't really have to call it a district because districts are within zones and there's only one set of rules in that zone. So you wouldn't even call it a district. It would just be the rules for the non-shoreland zone.
But April, we could have other types of land use in the interior.
Absolutely.
We could have, we've talked in the past, at least amongst the history folks, about having a historic district set up.
Yeah.
And that would be something separate from limited residential commercial. There's the possibilities as we're looking at the resources and looking at the maps of resources, we might have some other resource protection opportunities on the island that would want resource protection districts.
There should be a non-shoreland resource protection district probably, but I'm not picking that bee's nest. All I'm saying for this year is that we should differentiate the inland general use area from the shoreland general use area, what we're calling limited residential commercial. So I don't want to call the inland areas that are very similar to the shoreland LRC, because that's going to be very confusing. I would just say let's just call this the non-shoreland zone. Here's the rules in the non-shoreland zone. And then once we have this really solid basis for thinking and talking about it, we can go on to develop districts within the non-shoreland zone if we want to, and the town agrees.
If I could just add one point, April, as a word of caution, the building code ordinance applies to the entire island, not just outside of shoreland zoning. So if the town decides to make an amendment to the shoreland zoning ordinance, we have to go through the DEP and get bureau approval before any changes can take effect. If the town wants to enact an island-wide change, we can do that through the building code ordinance on our own independently. If you were to take and separate the building code ordinance from the shoreland zoning ordinance and make it its own thing, that would take that off of the table.
You mean if we were to combine them, everything would have to go through the DEP.
No, well, that's true, and I wouldn't recommend that, but what I'm saying is if you take the building code ordinance and make it exclusively outside of shoreland zoning ordinance, then that takes the town's ability away from making an independent change that affects the whole island.
Okay, Ross, you're our invited guest here this evening, and we want to take advantage of your time. You've gotten a sample of what we're wrestling with here, and no need for us to rehash it all in all the details that we will eventually and continue to do. But Ross, give us your reactions. I'm still catching up, I think, to some of the others since I missed that meeting. But I guess the question I would ask you is, if you had a blank sheet of paper, Westport Island, what would that look like to you in your world of regulating shoreland zone with respect to zones and districts?
Yeah, so I'm going to go off what April's saying because we've talked about this, and so I first want to say the difference between zones and districts is you have the shoreland zone and your inland area is another zone. Okay. You can have districts within each of the zones. Well, shoreland zone, it's clearly identified in chapter 1000 when you do your ordinance. And the town would be able to do on their inland zone, determine their own districts. Okay. I know that's there's two different approaches that you can do it in towns. It's up to the town to decide. I see April's point and Colin's point because it would make it so much easier, but you could have like the whole entire thing. You could have, let's just call the inland zone the general zone, right? Or the building zone, the building ordinance zone or something like that. You can have that within the shoreland zone as well. Okay, so the only difference would be whichever, like say if someone's building a new house in the shoreland zone and you have both, the general building zone and the shoreland zone together, you would just have to, you'd have to be more, whichever ordinance is more stringent is the one that you would use. That's where it kind of makes it more confusing because you have two competing jurisdictions. If you understand that, you would also have to consider permitting, like what kind of application are you going to give somebody? If you have two different jurisdictions or two different zones within the same zone, are you going to give them a shoreline zoning application or are you going to give them a building permit application? You'd have to give them a shoreline zoning application. So what April's trying to do is just create two different zones, like a inland zone and a shoreline zone. just so that the shoreline zone, like the jurisdiction is taken care of, the districts, everyone knows what they're supposed to do in the districts. You have a permitting system, you have a administrative system, and you have a notice of violation system, where the inland portion or inland zone, the town can decide whatever they want to do on the inland. Maine DEP doesn't have anything to do with that. Like if you decide whatever districts you want to call it, however you want to break it up, that's up to the town. We don't have to review that at all. That would be the town's review for the inland zone. Oh, I can't hear you. I think you're on mute. Still on mute.
How's that?
Can you hear us now?
Yep, sure.
Thank you, John.
Okay, so, given what you just said, are you then talking about, with respect to the districts, you would have within the shoreland zone a district, and you would have a separate district in the interior, even though it was the same property?
So yeah, that could occur. I mean, it'd be different. Say you have a town that straddles the inland zone and the shoreland zone, then I know it'd be a little bit difficult, but you would have to, the jurisdiction would go with whatever, area or whatever zone that piece of property was. Like if you're building a house in the inland zone side of the, you would use that jurisdiction or that ordinance to regulate the activities there. Does that make sense?
What if the house straddles the zone boundary? I've got a house that's half in the shoreland zone and the other half is outside the shoreland zone.
Restrictive.
It would be two. It'd be two. You'd have to do. What you could do is you could develop one shoreline, like say for instance, you do an activity, you could do one shoreland zoning permit application, and you could have different checks where you could do like a building ordinance or building permit and shoreland zoning permit. You could check that, and all you need to do is just follow whatever area that house that straddling is in is what you would regulate. Like that area would, the part that's in the shoreland zone would be regulated by shoreland zone, and the part that's out of the shoreland zone in the general building permit zone, that would be regulated by that. Does that make sense? And if you want to make it easy, easier, you could go with whatever's the strictest out of the two.
Yeah. I mean, we already essentially do this. Like lots of our properties are in two districts. CFMAs should be, and many of them are in two districts. Resource protection, limited development, all those properties, those shoreland districts end at the 250-foot line, and the rest of the property is in the LRC. Even our properties, which are in both shoreland LRC and then extend inland, and then are in our inland version of LRC, they're really in two districts because you're applying two different sets of rules. I'm just saying, let's make it explicit.
I have a question.
Confusing.
So what you're suggesting with establishing the LRC as a completely different zone, would then it have, then would we have to create two building requirements, one for the shoreland zone and one for the LRC, I guess we can just call now, if we're using that to delineate what's in the shoreland zone versus the LRC or the interior zone? And what I mean by building requirements is what Gary looks for is height of a structure, lot coverage, or is that silly of me asking, is that already, I don't know, do you know what I mean? Are we creating two different criteria, two different building codes and definitions, one that is for the shoreland zone and one that is for the interior? Because
we already do. We already do that.
I mean, the ordinance, the regulations that apply are determined by the position of the structure. So if it's within 250 feet, the regulations and shoreline zoning apply. If it's outside 250 feet, the building code regulations apply. I mean, I'm failing to see the problem we're trying to solve here.
Right, that's what I'm asking is, so, but in the height requirements for a building in our interior is 35 feet, isn't it? And for the height requirements within the shoreline zone, is that,
35 feet.
So within the shoreline zone, like say it's near tidal waters, right? After 75 feet, it's 35 feet in height. But within that, there's different heights. Like if you have non-conforming structures in there, it could vary from 15 feet height at 25, you know, within 25 feet, within 75 feet, it's 20-foot height. Then within, you know, usually I work with a lot of lakes within, you know, after 100-foot setback, lakes are usually 100-foot setback for new houses. It's 35 feet, and then beyond is 35 feet.
so a non-conforming house within the 75-foot setback has a height requirement of 20 feet.
Yeah. Yeah. Let me double check that. But yep, yep.
About, there's maybe a half a dozen properties on the island that are in the shoreline zone that are not also in the interior. Almost every property, if it's on shore, extends into both the shoreline zone and the interior. So that's why our structure now, people have to look at both.
Yeah.
They have to look at shoreline zoning if they've got a property in the shoreline zone.
Mm-hmm.
But there's also the the rest of the building code applies for the outside of the shoreline zone. And almost every property then in shoreline zoning has to deal with both.
Yeah,
Right.
and I think this is the point I tried to originally make. I'm not trying to change anything. I'm trying to make the nomenclature less confusing because it's super confusing to me, and I've seen everyone else on this board get incredibly confused and tangled up because we don't have this all in one place. We aren't clear about the fact that we have a shoreland zone and a non-shoreland zone, and we aren't explicit about what the rules are in the non-shoreland zone and that they're different, which they are. I mean, Gary's already said he applies one set of rules in the shoreland, one set of rules outside of the shoreland. Wouldn't it be nice if that was just in the table, and if you were outside of the shoreland, you could see your rules right there in a column in the table? Wouldn't it be nice if we could say, instead of saying we have a shoreland zoning ordinance and a building code ordinance, which makes no sense, we have a non-shoreland zone and a shoreland zone. We have these two zones with two separate sets of rules, and in this zone, we've broken it down into 4 districts. Like, we're just so unclear about it. So again, this is not a substantive change. It's just talking about what we already have in a way that makes sense.
I'm confused at the overlay. Like, I understand in the two, are you still suggesting that we are combining the shoreline ordinance and the building code ordinance into a land use ordinance? Because I think, is that what you're suggesting still?
I would still like
I
to
think
do
what
that.
Gary said and what Ross said is that then every time we make a change to our land use ordinance, it needs approval by the DEP.
I'm not sure about that.
Well, if it's so, this is kind of confusing, but I've seen towns do different things. Like I've seen it to where they'll just do a shoreline zoning ordinance and they incorporate it into their general land use, like as a section. So all you would need to do is send us the shoreline zoning portion for our review, and the other like portion for the general, you know, inland one that you're talking about, LRC, that, you know, that could be done by the town. If you would just put the shoreline zoning section within, you know, your one document, you could do that. Does that make sense?
Could we get that in writing?
But I've seen this in other towns that have done this. Just as long as the shoreline zoning portion meets all the criteria, meaning it was signed and attested by what date, and all the other requirements of the full shoreline zoning permit added as a section to your ordinance, your general ordinance.
Yeah, I just want to clarify something real quick. Our building applies to the whole island. The applicability section is one sentence, and it says this ordinance applies to the land areas outside of the shoreland zone within the town of Westport Island. So we don't, that ordinance doesn't apply to the whole island. We can't make an island-wide change through the building code. We would be making changes to the interior, not the shoreline.
Yeah.
And,
Where did you read that from, April? That's in our building code ordinance?
Yeah, it's the section 3 applicability section.
Oh, no kidding, I missed that change. I wonder when that changed.
Before me.
All right.
Demi, to
April,
answer
did
your
you-
question about how, sorry.
April, did you have some specific questions that you wanted to ask Ross?
I do, and I just wanted to answer Demi's last question about how this would be done. So,
Yeah.
Demi, I'm keeping 2 routes open. I have tried to combine them because I think it would be nice and more understandable for people to have one zoning ordinance with everything laid out in it. But if we can't do that, we can still clarify things through 2 ordinances. I think the building code ordinance primarily would need work. I think we should call it something different. We should call it maybe the not shoreland zoning ordinance. And we should make the table of land uses especially not have all that shoreland stuff, just talk about the interior rules. And there's other places in the ordinance where it just, I think there was a lot of cutting and pasting. And so it has shoreland stuff in it. It's all mixed together. So it's really unclear. So those 2 routes are still open, and I'll get you a draft of the combo, and then we can also work on the 2 separate ones. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay. I don't know if these questions will be helpful to everyone else, so you can stop me if not.
I guess I could get granular on another question for you, Ross, is back to CFMA districts, and I think you caught the tail end of one of our conversations that we had.
Yeah.
Or CFMA zone. CFMA district. I was right the first time. Okay. I'm trying to fix the way I talk about these areas. So for the CFMA district, the way it's shown, and I know this is another thing on our list, is to fix our tax maps on, right, April? On the, because they're a little misleading and we use them often. And so does the CFMA district follow the lot lines, or does it follow the shoreland zone area?
It would follow the shoreland zone. So it would be within 250 feet of the hat of tidal area. So it would be within the 250 feet. Normally when a town determines a district, they try to use property lines. You could use property lines, you could use roads, you can use different boundaries, but normally you try to use property lines if you can when you establish a district.
Okay.
Yeah.
So the applicability is within the 250 feet for the CFMA zone?
That's
but
correct.
The way the town draws it, it follows the lines, property bounds.
Yeah, like the sides of it, like the width of it.
Oh, the sides. Okay.
Yeah,
Because, as you're familiar with everyone, in April, our tax map shows the entire lot highlighted within the CFMA.
Right.
And that's one of the things that we've said we need to correct.
Yeah.
The CFMA needs to stop at the boundary for the shoreland zone.
Yeah.
And kind of mimic what the RP is doing, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Some
So
of the
Ross-
CFMAs are only a portion of lots too.
Right.
Now, there, if you look at, I just kind of going through and looking at them, That's a case in a few cases, yeah.
Okay, April, with your questions.
Ross, do you have an opinion on whether the timber harvesting has been statutory repealed or not?
So it has not been, it's not forced at this time for the towns to repeal. However, we recommend that you do. And do you understand what the repeal means? Like, you would be repealing to the Maine Forest Service?
Yeah, we have it. We have it in our shoreland zone. It's a bit of language that says we repeat this. These sections relating to timber harvesting are repealed as of the statutory date, 2 Januaries past, whatever. And that's like, that language was actually at one point amended into our shoreland zoning ordinance. It's in there. So it's weird. It's like we repealed it, but instead of taking things out, we put repeal language in. It gets triggered at a certain point.
So we have to send actually the shoreland zoning ordinance revisions to Maine Forest Service, and they have specific requirements that the town does. Like, for instance, you have to take out that whole section. You have to take out definitions and stuff off the land use. Repeal is one thing that they told us they wanted towns to use, and because it's specific legal language that, you know, that shows that the town no longer has jurisdiction for timber harvest. It has been transferred or repealed to the Maine Forest Service. So that's why they use that terminology, repealed.
Right, but we also still have all the timber harvesting sections.
Oh, so that would, so this, can we do that one-on-one? I'll tell you exactly what you need to take out, because this will take a while. Yeah,
it's confusing. And I did talk to the Maine Forest Service because Colin said, make sure you did actually repeal it. So I went to them and they're like, we don't know. So I don't know. Okay.
Let's do that one-on-one, because it's really easy, but we probably could go through the whole ordinance and I could show you what to do.
Yeah. And then we talked about this a little bit on the phone, but then I talked with the rest of the committee a little bit and I couldn't explain it well and we're still confused.
Sure.
So the shoreland zone definition in the DEP guide and in our shoreland zoning ordinance says all land areas within 75 feet horizontal distance of the normal high water line of a stream is under the shoreland zoning district, right?
Yes, it's under the stream protection district.
Well, that's the thing. We haven't adopted that. So what effect does that language have in the applicability section in this base definition if we haven't adopted that district? And if it applies, how are we supposed to enforce it if we don't have a stream protection district?
So if you don't have stream protection districts, you can take it out of where it says establishment of districts.
Okay.
Some towns do that, or you could leave it in, and if you decide later you have a tributary stream that you determine that's a stream protection district later on, but you could always do a revision on your ordinance at that point, you know.
Okay, so it's in our definitions, but we don't actually enforce it because we don't have a stream protection district.
Correct. Yeah, some people will take out districts that are not applicable to their town. If you look on the section for establishing districts, you'll see that.
Yeah, we don't have it. We don't have it in our list of districts. We just have that language about 75 feet from a stream in the applicability section in the basic definition.
Right.
So it's kind of a contradiction, I guess.
Yeah, so there are areas of streams that aren't in a stream protection in some towns that that have the 75-foot setback. They might be districted as something else, like a limited residential, but that stream is still 75-foot setback. Does that make sense?
I don't know. If it's not in a district, how are we protecting it, I guess? Like the language can be in the ordinance that 75 feet.
Yeah. So different water bodies have different setbacks. Like for instance, a stream will have a 75-foot setback for activities within, which is we call it the shoreland buffer. more regulated than most.
Yeah.
A lake or a great pond's 100-foot setback. And like tidal, a coastal wetland is 75-foot setback. So streams, if you have streams in the town, like a named stream.
I think the problem is we don't have streams now that I think about it. Well, we do
Yeah.
obviously, but we don't have
Sure.
ones that you guys define as a stream.
Sure. Yeah. Like if it's not a tributary stream and doesn't meet the definition of it, then, you know, it's something else. But sometimes unnamed streams are not. And those other streams that are unnamed or not in a district, that is under the jurisdiction of NERPA, you know, Maine
Right.
DEP NERPA. So,
Yep. Okay. Resource Protection District.
Yep.
So we went over this. All we have is the wading bird section. That's how we've defined resource protection, and that's one of the optional pieces.
mhm.
So the other four that we need to add include the floodplain zone, the slopes, the excuse me, the slopes. What else is it? I can't find it at the moment.
Is it wetland areas of 2 or more contiguous areas of wetland?
Yeah, I think so.
And there's other ones too.
Floodplains, areas of 2 or more contiguous acres with sustained slopes of 20%,
mhm.
areas of 2 or more contiguous acres supporting wetland vegetation and hydric soils, which are not
Mhm.
otherwise part of a wetland or a body of water. Oh, and land areas subject to erosion,
Yeah.
along river banks or coastal bluffs. And then
Yeah.
there's optional.
Yeah, there's like subsections there, like the wildlife habitat. You could have, well, I don't know if you guys have them here. Up here we have deer yards, we have inland wading bird and waterfowl habitat. You might have like a historical site, like natural sites of significant scenic
Right,
value.
but these only apply in the shoreland zone. This is the shoreland zone resource protection district. And
Yes.
so all we have for our definition is the last optional one about
Mhm.
areas within 250 feet, blah, 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 which are rated moderate or high value waterfowl.
Mhm.
Am I understanding it right that we have to have those first four, which we don't have? Floodplains, slopes.
If you don't have any area like that, you don't have to district it in resource protection.
I think I know why we didn't then, because we didn't have a floodplain ordinance until kind of recently. So
Yeah.
now we do have floodplains, which should probably be added to that district. And I don't know, my secondary part of this question is how do we map out all this stuff to figure out if we have it or not? How do we need to have someone like survey the coast, or are there maps we can use to say, okay, no, we don't have more than 2 acres of sustained slope?
So that would I would probably hire someone to do that, because you're going to need to find like a lot of measurements. If you don't feel like you have that in the town, there's through investigation, you know,
right.
I mean, it's up to the town to go out and do that. Yeah.
I think the topography will be pretty easy. We can just look at a topographical map and be like, doesn't appear to us that we have it. And if we do see something, then we can at least narrow it down. I think the wetland thing is harder.
Yeah, the wetland, actually, there's wetland maps. There's available to the town. There is mapping online as well. I was going to tell you about the slopes. I mean, a good map reader can look at contour lines and kind of check out areas that are steep to help. And then they'll have to maybe go walk it and check it out.
Like the beginning with habitat map for the wetlands.
Yeah.
Would be a good place to start. And then what was the fourth one? I keep forgetting.
It was
the erosion.
like erosion. It was,
well, a steep coastal bluff is like a cliff.
Yeah, like a wedge and, you know, and a cliff. Yeah, pretty much steep area.
Most of our island is that. So how do we determine if it's subject to erosion?
You could tell by the soils and the vegetation. If you have vegetation and soil loss from stormwater, there's people that could determine that for you. Definitely to go check it out. Yeah.
I think we're all ledge, so I don't think we've got the erosion problem.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're
Right.
all rock.
Right.
No dirt.
But I mean, you see places like in California where you see eroding and everything falls into the ocean. Maine's not usually like that. So,
Right.
yeah.
We're not allowed to do state park, we don't have those.
Yeah, I think everything's already eroded, so we're probably
Yeah.
okay
So you're
there.
probably good.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I think Demi brought up the CFMAs. They're a little bit of a nightmare. I've been grappling with how do we ever review these things? Do they come out of CFMA if someone doesn't continue to use it as a CFMA? Do we leave it in CFMA and people are using it residentially? Like, how do we
Yeah,
deal with it?
there's within the ordinance, I would look at the ordinance within there, there's use, non-conforming use, right? And if they're not using it for something or they abandon like a use or a business, there's a certain amount of time that they don't use it where that, it's lost that use. Like I'll give you an example, like for a house, if it was in the shoreline zone, it was used for residential and it was abandoned and not used for 5 years, then it's lost its use. Say if it's over, it has a lot of damage and it's not habitable, it's should be demolished. It would lose its use,
Okay.
Where would we find that?
It's within the ordinance under non-conforming uses.
Right. So our
For our
CFMA,
shoreline ordinance.
Yep,
Okay.
it'll be in your shoreline zoning ordinance.
in both, but yeah.
Yeah.
So the CFMA we were just talking about, guys, it was used as a commercial maritime business. They haven't been using it for many, many years now.
Well, more than 50% market value.
So does that make did it at some point become non-conforming because they aren't using it for a maritime activity? It's a little different than non-conforming use because we actually have to, when we put something into CFMA or take it out of CFMA, it's by town meeting vote. It's based on use, but it's by town meeting vote. So it's very tricky. And we don't have any process for, do we review them once a year? Do we so we
Yeah,
just,
have you ever seen another town deal with spot zoning CFMA and how they deal with the change of hands of these properties? No.
My area has no ocean in it, actually.
Okay.
So that'd be a good question for Colin. So, yeah.
Yeah, because April's right. Like when I don't know if you caught the tail end of that conversation,
Yeah.
but when they were saying, what if we want to take it out of CFMA?
Yeah.
That would have to be done, like you said, by town warrant and town vote, essentially in June.
Yeah.
So it is really odd that we would vote on a district in and out, and even though after it's lost its primary use.
So, yeah, that's the thing you want to look at is how much time it's not been used. And then there are provisions within your ordinance that say you may change to another non-conforming use provided that the proposed use has no greater impact on the subject, adjacent properties and resources, including water dependent uses in the CMFA district. And that's determined by the planning board. There's provisions that show the criteria within that as well. The best thing to do is if someone could put their nose in it and kind of read that specific to see if they're able to do that. I think they were saying, I kind of overheard them saying that they wanted to do a certain kind of use for 5 days and then another use on the weekend. That doesn't go with the intent of the ordinance.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's what I kind of said at the end. I'm like, the CFMA zoning district is really to keep working waterfront alive in Maine. It's, but We've seen that a lot with that lot. I mean, a lot of different people were looking at it and even came to us with proposed uses for primarily entertainment and recreation that didn't have to do with the CFMA. And we pretty much just said, yes, CFMA is supposed to be
Yeah.
for working waterfront maritime.
Correct.
And then they always, I think they were trying to see if they could convince us that what they were doing was that.
Right.
Which they might, and that's what we told them, like, go read the ordinance and come up with a proposal. But I just wanted to see what you thought about that.
Yeah, I mean, definitely if it's already under CMFA, and it's in a CMFA district, it has to follow that district's
Okay.
regulations or requirements. And so, yeah, I mean, if they were in, say, a general development district, they might be allowed to do a change of use to some kind of recreation, but
Yeah, then that was kind of the spider web I didn't want to ask out loud while that was happening was, say that property is, you have, I think it's 2 buildings within the 70, I didn't really look at it too far, but it's 2 buildings definitely within the 250-foot hat line.
Yep.
But say it was taken out of CFMA, then it would have to go under shoreland. It's in the, it's always in the shore. Now it's under the shoreline zoning ordinance. But then you have a secondary building, which is the boathouse, which they were talking about. If they made changes to that building, here's my question. If they made changes to that building well within the 75-foot hat line, would they need to come to us?
Definitely. Like, are you talking
Any
about
kind of
expansions?
changes?
Like, if they're doing general maintenance, they're okay. But if they're doing expansion or raising it or different things like that, they definitely would need to come see you guys.
What about things that are not apparent to the exterior? What about adding a toilet, adding a cook space? And I'm not saying I'm saying for any kind of non-conforming building within the 75 setback, not expanding. But what about interior change? Say it's just a boathouse. If they were to add a cook space or a bathroom, how?
That's a great question. So they're turning that into a residential dwelling at that point, right? So that is not within the standards of shoreline zoning. A boathouse is pretty much supposed to stay the way it is and not be used as a residential dwelling or a bunkhouse. So if they're doing things like that, like sleeping quarters or a kitchen, that wouldn't follow the standards, for a boathouse.
Okay.
So
yeah.
What's that?
Yeah.
Or event center.
They just said they would not get a permit for that.
Now, another thing that we talked about at our meeting when we're all together was kind of this scenario that we were just talking about, but a non-conforming building within the 75-foot hat line, not expansion. We're not talking about expansion, but we're talking about like considerable revamping and renovation of the interior, which essentially takes it, because Ross, you've seen a lot of people come up and take what used to be summer cottages, and turn them into full year-round homes with new MEP and everything like that. So how do we find the definitions? I think what we struggle a lot with is how do we find what is maintenance versus what is rehauling? Like if someone is completely gutting a cottage, not expanding, but completely gutting it and rebuilding it, is that changing?
I'll answer that in a second. I just wanted to mention first, if you look in the land use table, it'll show you everything that you're allowed to do. Like, for instance, a CFA, you can't have principal structures. It says no for allowing that. Now, to answer your question, there's procedures that people have to do. If there's work that needs, or there's damage or what we call 50% market value loss, that is considered maintenance. That could be work done within. That doesn't mean expansion. That just means, someone's got to fix siding. They got to put windows in and doors and whatnot. If it's over 50, that's considered reconstruction and replacement, which then you would do a greatest practical extent review. And if it's a boathouse and they want to do that to a boathouse, and there's over 50% market value that they want to do to it, that is a non-conforming structure that have to be moved back to greatest practical extent, and there'll be a change of use as well.
And it's not 50% market value of the structure and the lot together, but a 50% market value of the structure itself.
Correct.
Like what we were talking about with Colin is a cabin on the water has a very different value than a cabin in the middle of the woods.
Right.
So it's just of the structure itself,
yes.
Correct?
I'll give you an example of this. We had a boathouse where they hired a realtor to do a market value, and it was kind of done incorrectly, because what he did is he did a comp for all the houses or structures within the area, and he wrote in there that since this was unique, this boathouse compared to all the other comps, that it should be higher, which is incorrect. Just like you said, it should be just the structure. If you took that structure and put it in the middle of a field, in the middle of the woods, how much would the market value be for just that structure? So you are correct in that. Yeah.
So that's under 3, reconstruction, replacement. We were going over that and saying 50% of the market value of the structure before such damage or structure removal may be reconstructed or replaced.
Yeah.
Okay.
That could also count as if someone wanted to totally demo their house, that would be considered the over 50%. Then they would have to do greatest practical extent. And, you guys will determine that, the planning board, and they have to follow all the other standards within whatever setback they were at.
So if someone takes a seasonal cottage and renovates within the 75-foot setback and takes it down to the studs, and then rebuilds it, that needs to go under our review.
Correct. That would be over 50% market value for sure. Would be considered a reconstruction replacement. Yeah. Okay. So under 50%, we can.
If they do it all at once, that's another thing, right?
Yeah. I mean, if they're just fixing parts, like maintaining things here and there, they're okay if it's under the 50% market value. It's kind of hard to determine that, but you'll know for sure if someone's stripping something down and, totally demoing it, usually is what happens. So, yeah.
Now, what is our jurisdiction if that's been done without review?
So that, there's a couple things. I'll just give you an example of what you could do. The code enforcement officer would either write a letter of warning or notice of violation. Usually you have to do that 3 times. You try to get it may have to go to court, like after the 3rd notice of violation. But you have to contact them at least 3 times. The town technically could have them move it back. That's up to the town and what your appetite to do it, but normally start off with a notice of violation. And that's a good time to call us too, to kind of give you some advice after that. You kind of want to go by case, if they do it, but definitely call us if that occurs, and we'll help you or guide you in the right direction.
That's kind of a sticky situation. So you just give 3 notices and then it's straight to the courts. There's no fees or fines that could just be.
Well, It's up, so it's up to the town. So if the town wants them to take it down or move it and they don't do it, then you could fine them each day. I think I don't remember exactly. It's like $100 a day to up to like $2,500 a day for some places. And you do that per day till they do it, or you have some kind of consent agreement. That's the time you want to talk to your town attorney really about what the town wants to do about it. It is a very sticky situation. It's going to be legal and you're going to get a lot of pushback. That's where you want to get the town attorney involved. There's different things you could do: notice of violation, consent agreements, to try to come up with some kind of, compromise, or superior court. So, yeah. Does that make sense?
Yes, thank you so much.
Sure.
April, any other questions?
One extremely nerdy question. I don't know if you're going to be able to answer this because it's sort of about coastal areas.
Mm-hmm.
So one of the things I've been trying to do, I've noticed a lot of towns, instead of narratively writing out their minimum lot requirements and their setbacks, they put them in these nice little tables. So I've been trying to make tables to replace a lot of our text. But you guys have one in your guide.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what page it's on, but it's like the beginning of lot requirements.
Now.
And I was trying to sort of integrate it with our stuff, and you have title versus non-title.
Yes. Yep.
Which isn't really mentioned elsewhere in the ordinance. I mean, I guess it pertains to it's freshwater based versus saltwater, right?
Yep.
Is that what we're getting at?
Correct.
I just wasn't quite sure. It just appeared in the table, that terminology, and I didn't see it anywhere else in the ordinance.
Yep.
And I was kind of wondering, like, why just in the table? Does it reference something? Is it?
So there is, I don't know if we're talking about the same area, but probably the same. It says minimum lot standards.
Yes, that's the one. Yep.
Yep. That's the only place we really have it.
Yeah.
Yep.
That's why I was confused. I'm like, why is it just here? And it's a little bit of a pain for me because we have our limited development district, which is a special one we made, is in both title and non-title areas. So it's making my table a real pain in the butt. But
yeah, it's yeah. But yeah, that's the only place. Yeah. There's other things I don't want to get into because it's going to take too long to
just confuse us all. Okay,
yeah,
fair enough. I'll live with it.
I definitely want to use it. Let me just tell you this.
Mm-hmm.
If someone wants to build on a smaller lot and you like that's non-conforming and you don't kind of know how to handle it, just call Colin or probably Colin because he's in that area, but there's provisions for that too.
Okay.
So, yep.
Yeah, that's all I had for my list of questions.
Okay.
Thank you so much for taking all this time. Really appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, no problem. I hope I didn't confuse you more than
No, not
super
at all.
helpful.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay.
Any other questions from the committee? Okay. Ross, thank you very much. We really, really appreciate your time. I hope you get paid overtime.
I'll make it up somehow. So, yeah.
All right. There you go.
All right. Well, have a good day.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Bye.
Take
Thank
care. Be safe.
Yeah.
Bye.
Okay. How's everybody doing? Go another hour?
It's sort of like we got a good roll, but I have to have a training day, which I can miss the front part of, but.
I need to go get some dinner. Any other business folks want to address?
I guess just like when is our plan as a team finalize whatever changes and ordinances are going through?
Yeah. I think it would be helpful if we had another study session.
I'll make it.
Here.
So what sounds good to you?
Okay.
I'm wide open. You want to do another Wednesday in 2 weeks?
Hopefully, there's that probably before April, right?
Let me pull up some dates.
Yeah.
That'd be the
April the month.
25th.
Um,
That's history committee, isn't it?
It is.
It's quite a good time.
Well,
We could do it. Or
Next week.
I can't do it on a Wednesday next week.
does it have to be a Wednesday?
Totally up to you.
No, doesn't have to be Wednesday. Fridays are pretty good for me, actually.
Friday.
Mm-hmm.
What do y'all think? You like the 20th or the 27th?
Most Fridays are good.
What do you think?
I'm waiting for my screen to refresh.
Oh,
You're saying that most Fridays work for me, but it depends.
Mary Ellen?
Yep.
Okay, yeah. What do you
Yeah,
think?
I'm-
I'm in surgery on the 17th, so I'm not promising I'll be mobile on the 20th.
Well, no.
Would
Is it
27th
outpatient
be better?
or, is it outpatient or?
It's outpatient back.
You feel more comfortable the 27th?
Ultimately, that would work better for me if it's okay, but if that's pushing it out, I can also come by Zoom.
Yeah, if you wanna go earlier in the day too,
Sorry.
or do we wanna keep it 6 p.m.?
I don't know, Jones,
Yeah.
it's flexible, it's just.
Yeah, and.
We can keep it 6 p.m., I have no problem, but
Nope.
I was just offering earlier because I have early days on Fridays.
All right, well, sounds like we're shooting for the 27th.
Mhm.
Let me look at my work schedule. It looks like I can bail out early. What are you thinking?
Whatever works for you.
I
Comfortable.
better have everything all done by the 27th.
You right?
I better have all my stuff done by the 27th.
Oh, okay,
I
okay.
get something on the 28th.
All right. 27th, going once. April, are you okay the 27th?
Yep, looks good for me. 4 o'clock? We saying 4?
For 4, maybe 6.
All right, well, let's say 4, and if I've got a problem, I'll let everybody know.
Okay.
Okay, 4 o'clock study session.
Yeah.
Gary, thank you very much.
Thank you.
And April, thanks for reaching out to Ross. That was really helpful.
Mhm.
Yeah, I enjoy him. I feel like he's very straightforward.
All right.
Which town does he live in, I wonder?
Oh, I'm still recording, sorry.
I wonder if he's based in Maine or Augusta.
I think we're
No,
adjourned.
he's northern. He told me
Move
he's
to adjourn.
northern.
Second, all in favor.
Aye.
Okay.
What's the time?
Yeah.
7:56.